Hi everyone, John at Bauhaus Performance. Today we're going to go over a track day prep guide for first-time drivers. So this will be applicable for first-time drivers in HPDE, track day, high-performance driving, things like that. So we'll get into it. These are the different sections that we'll go over. We'll cover everything from what to expect, car and driver preparation. We'll talk about an example schedule, goals and mistakes, and then we'll talk about a couple little things at the end. There will be timestamps in the description and the actual video, so feel free to jump around, go to what's important for you or relevant to you, and you should have a good time. All right, what to expect. So let's talk about arrival and check-in. So in the materials that'll be sent to you by email from the sanctioning body, this will have when to arrive and also where to check in and things like that. If you do have questions, definitely respond so that you're on the same page. If you get there and are not sure, definitely you can reach out to other drivers and things like that. They're going to be helpful in terms of giving you, advice and things like that throughout the weekend, but they can definitely help you out with where to check in and things like that. All of them have been in the same position as you. They've been new drivers at one point, so they're going to be helpful in terms of helping you, find check-in and things like that. I can't give advice on actually how the check-in process and arrival process works because depending on the track, sanctioning body, schedule, things like that, it's going to be different. So, best advice is go ahead, read the materials, and reach out if you need to. You will have a driver's meeting as well. This will typically be, everyone at the event. They'll go through, your track etiquette and, things like that. Any rules for the weekend. This is where that'll happen. So they're not just going to throw you out on track and let you fend for yourself. There will be, times where you'll have downtime and talking with the instructors. There will also be a tech inspection. For you guys, this will probably be a self-inspection. They have typically a form that is going to be, requested that you fill out, review, the condition of your vehicle and things like that. If you do have a heavily modified vehicle, they may ask you to actually go to formal tech inspection with the racers. So you may need to do that if you have, specifically it's going to be your safety equipment. If you do have aftermarket belts or things like that. But the tech inspection, the form is going to be the same, whether it is, or typically is going to be the same, whether it is, a modified car versus a stock car. They will also give you, instruction on learning the track. So, you don't have to worry about, going there and again, them throwing you out into the wild. They're going to teach you through the track. They'll likely have instructors as well if you do need an instructor. For a first-time track day, they may require you to have one. But, if you have the option, if it's your first time out on track or something like that, I would definitely take advantage of it. They'll also go through, track etiquette and all the different flags and what their meanings are. So, you can definitely, do your, research before the event and things like that. But they will, teach you track etiquette and the flags. And the last thing to expect is going to be, there are going to be drivers and cars that are at wildly different paces. It's a track day, so a lot of different cars and things like that. And so, just be prepared that you could get, passed or you could be, passing other cars. So, mentally prepare for that, some people are going to be really slow, maybe just slow drivers. And some people are going to be, jumping out of the gate, real fast. This is for you, right? You don't need to be looking at someone else's plate. Just do your thing, learn at your pace, and you'll have a great time. Okay, let's go over car preparation. So preparing your car, the number one thing is going to be safety. You're going to want to do your tech inspection and make sure that your car is in good condition to actually go out on track and one, be safe for yourself, but also be safe for the other drivers. So these are a couple of the different points that we want to call out. Number one is going to be your wheels and tires. So, making sure they don't have to be, the best tires in the world, the fastest tire. They don't even need to have that much tread on them, right? but make sure that they're in good condition. There's no, the sidewall isn't blown out or something like that crazy. There's no bubbling. Make sure basically that you're not going to have a blowout, and that you're going to be able to stop with them, is what you're going to want to look for. Make sure the wheels are balanced too. That's the only, advice on the wheel side. You don't want to get up to speed and then have your wheels shaking all over the place. Just take it to a shop, say, hey, balance my wheels. They'll do it for a small fee, and then you'll be set. You won't have to worry about it on track. Make sure that your brakes work well. They don't need to be, I guess you would say, like perfect. You don't need to have new pads and new rotors and everything like that. You don't have to dump a bunch of money into it, but just make sure, you have good pedal pressure. It stays under pressure. You have life on the pads and rotors and drums, I guess, if you're running drums. Just make sure it's all in good condition. Obviously no leaks and things like that. Just make sure it's the essentials, right? And if you need to take it to a shop, take it to a shop. The last thing that you want, obviously, is, you're going down the track and your foot goes straight to the floor when you try to enter the braking zone. For fluids, it's basically going to be, does your car, of course, have the right level of fluid? Is it leaking fluid? That's going to be a no-go immediately if you get out on track and you don't have, if you start leaking fluids. It's going to be it's going to be dangerous for yourself and your car because your car is not going to be run right. But, behind you, there's going to be a puddle of fluid, right? And it's not going to be a puddle. It's going to be a spray when you're going down, down the track. We've seen it happen where, I think it was, coolant or oil, I can't remember which, that I can remember, that basically came up and, just covered the windshield of the car behind. So just make sure that you don't have that happen. So just make sure that you're maintaining your fluids, you're not leaking anything, because, the person behind you, it can cause a really dangerous situation where they, may lose visibility. If it's an open car, open top car, their helmet could get, sprayed with fluid, which could be, could scald them and things like that. And also it's going to make the track, really slick if there is an oil leak or something like that. Where, people will be expecting that they're going to have grip on the apex or in the braking zone, and they end up having none because there's a bunch of oil there. So make sure you're not leaking fluid. For your non-essential fluids, like your windshield wiping fluid, if it is leaking, it's not a big deal. Drain all the fluid out. Just make sure there's nothing in there, and you'll be good to go. Safety gear and interior. So this is mainly going to be around your belts and things like that. Also make sure that there's nothing loose in the vehicle, or make sure at the very least that you take it out of the vehicle before you go out on track, right? So don't have all your change, in the vehicle or anything like that that's going to be flopping around when you're transitioning. Make sure that there's, everything's secured, your seats are fastened well, your belts are installed correctly, and you'll be fine in terms of getting through tech and also, being safe on track. In terms of electrical, do make sure that your battery is fastened. You don't want that arcing on the, the side of the vehicle or anything like that. Or, worst case scenario, it could come unhooked and, basically leave you stranded out on track. The only other thing on electrical would be exposed wiring. So if you are twisting your wiring for whatever reason, you have to install some speakers or something like that, make sure that it is at least covered. Throw some tape on it, something like that. Again, you don't want that arcing. As far as suspension and steering goes, make sure that, everything feels tight. The main thing you're going to want to make sure is good is your tie rods. Make sure that, one of those isn't going to fall off and then you're basically going in whatever direction the car wants to go. So just make sure everything's tight. Get it up on a lift, get it up on the curb, give it a few rocks, with your arms, make sure the bearings are good. You don't need to go crazy with suspension, right? In terms of making sure everything's, buttoned up. At the very least, I would check your tie rods, make sure you're not just going to go straight. There's going to be a lot more load on your suspension, right, than your street driving. So make sure everything's ready to go and, nothing's torn or anything like that. And you should be all set. In terms of fuel, just make sure, either you have enough fuel or you have a way to get more fuel, whether you're bringing cans or something like that. Just make sure you have enough fuel for the day, for the weekend, or have a plan to actually go get fuel. Most tracks that I've been to have on-site fuel, so you could do that. But if not, just have a plan in between sessions to go to a gas station or something like that. All right, let's move on to driver preparation. So for driver preparation, the main thing is going to be your safety gear. Make sure you have a good quality helmet that fits you well. That includes, different visors if you need one for, cloudy weather and one for really bright weather. This is an outdoor sport, right? So you could get blinded by the sun. Make sure you have a good visor, right? But make sure that your helmet meets the right specification for whatever you're driving in, and make sure it fits well. Clothes and shoes. So at the very least, they're going to require that you wear long pants. As far as shoes go, we recommend at the very least, or I recommend, flat sole shoes. That's what I like. Your streetwear would be like Chuck Taylors or something like that. If you're wearing long pants and good shoes, that should cover you. What I recommend over, the minimum would be a Nomex suit. That's not going to work for everyone. So I would say at the very least, I wouldn't wear a t-shirt. I would wear long sleeves just in case something does get kicked up, and God forbid hits you or hits your arm or something like that, you're not going to have like a medical emergency, right? It's just a bruise as opposed to a cut or something like that. Most of the time you are going to be windows down, so that is a possibility. So just be prepared for that. It can suck when it's hot, but it's safety first. Definitely bring some extra food and fluids. While the track may have, food on site or something like that, I always have something in my hand when I'm walking around or watching other drivers or something like that, to make sure that you have enough food and fluids throughout the weekend. They're not going to be your, personal, concierge where they're going to have water for you and a towel to, dry you off, right? So, if you don't bring fluids, you're probably going to be drinking out of the tap. So bring, your 24, 36 pack of water and just like snacks. That's what I'll typically do, is just have a bunch of snacks. If they have food on site, I'll have my snacks and then also be able to go get like a hot meal and things like that when I'm there. Definitely bring a track map as well. Just print out a bunch of them, and that way you can mark them up. When you're out on track, after you get off the track, you can mark them up, put little notes and things like that on where to brake and things like that. So definitely bring a track map, staple it to your face if you need to. Make sure you learn the track. Alongside that is going to be your notepad and pens. I would recommend bringing those. That way, when you're in your driver's meeting, you can take notes, you can mark up your track map. And then once you get off track, you also can, take notes on what you can do differently for the next session, things like that. The first thing that I'm reaching for after I get off track is just my notepad and pens, so I can mark up, right in the heat of the moment, right when I get off track, exactly what I can, think that I can do to improve. Looking more inward too, definitely be patient and receptive to feedback. You need to be in that kind of mental state, right, where you're there to learn. You're not there to set the fastest lap time, because realistically you're not. So it's a tough truth, but be patient, be receptive to feedback. If you do have an instructor in the car, listen to them, try to apply what they're teaching you, and you will get faster throughout the day. But be patient, have fun, but it's going to take time, right? Just like anything else, it's going to take time to build your pace. So just go in thinking that you're going to learn. Just be an information sponge. Another recommendation would be to watch, YouTube videos on people who have driven the track. Ideally, that would be people in the same vehicle as you. That can be helpful. But what's going to be helpful about that is, your track map that you have, you see pictures of the track and the track map. Those are all going to be in a 2D plane. Whereas when you're watching a video, you're going to be able to see, where the hills are, there's camber and things like that. So, definitely watch a few videos, see where they're braking and things like that. So you at least understand kind of the basics of the track. Don't try to, in your first session, don't try to apply exactly what they're doing, because they're typically, going to be posting a hot lap or something like that where they're pushing the limit. But, try to think more about where the sight lines are, kind of where the braking zone is, how many boards are there, things like that. And then, if you have one on your computer, a simulator type setup, or on your Xbox or something like that, it can be helpful to do a few laps in a similar vehicle. Typically what you would want would be something more, obviously with a wheel, as opposed to like your Xbox or something like that. But that can be helpful to, again, understand the track, understand where you need to really slow down, where where the acceleration points are and things like that. Again, after you do that, you're still starting from square one, but you're tutoring yourself to understand the track, right? You still go into the weekend, pretend like none of that happened. That's just prep work. Because it is very different being in a simulator to actually on track. When you're in a simulator, unless you have one of those really fancy rigs where it's moving around and everything, you're not going to be under a sort of, stress situation where you're getting tossed around, you're smelling different things, you're smelling your brakes, it's hot, all those different things aren't happening. So, still take it slow, right? But try to learn the track from that time if you can. Okay, let's go over an example schedule. So the first thing that's going to happen, the first thing on your agenda is going to be a morning classroom session. This is where they're going to take you through track etiquette. They'll teach you about the flags, and they'll really go over kind of what the day looks like. After that, you'll have your first session. This will typically be a lead and follow. So what that means is there'll be an instructor that kind of leads the pack, and you all will be in single file following one another. Okay, so it's going to be your instructor in front, and then all of you guys are going to basically be doing the same thing, just trying to mimic the instructor, right? And it's going to be slow, and it's going to be annoying, and there's not going to be any passing, but a million slow laps are really helpful to understand everything about the track, right? This is where you're going to take all the preparation that you did in terms of learning the track map, getting in the simulator, watching YouTube videos, and this is where it's really going to apply, because all that stuff gets thrown out the window when you're actually on track and feeling what it feels like. All right, after your lead and follow, you guys are going to head back into the classroom and do a debrief. So you guys will talk about, how the session went, what did you learn, things like that. And get kind of a consensus on the group on, how things are going. They may do, some more formalized teaching in terms of, how actually to improve lap time or be more consistent, things like that. But this is going to lead into your second session, which is going to be, it's not going to be a lead and follow typically. Maybe it is, but typically what we'll see is it'll be more of, more independent. There will be limited passing, and you'll be focusing on things from the classroom session. So in my example, I called out, throttle control and weight transfer. When you do start building times as opposed to, a lead and follow type session, that weight transfer is going to be a lot more prevalent, right? So if you're going through a chicane, when you're going through the corners, you're going to start pulling some more, or you're going to be, pulled to the outside more, or under braking, you're going to be pulled forward. So definitely kind of, see how that feels, understand how that feels, build more consistency and pace from there. Throttle control it's really just going to be, depending on your car, right? Where can you accelerate without spinning up or, getting some rotation? But again, it's going to be, starting slow and building and building and building, kind of walking towards the limit. That's what you're going for. After that, you'll probably head back to the classroom, again, do a debrief, talk about what you learned, how it felt, what went wrong, things like that. And then they'll, talk through what to focus on the next session. Maybe they'll go around more advanced techniques and things like that. But it'll be probably a pretty quick meeting. After that, just a quick break for lunch, whatever. Go get some food. Make sure you're hydrated. And then session 3, this is, again, it's a more independent session, building more pace. I called out consistency and smoothness for this, right? So, building more consistency. Can you hit the same lap time, within a couple seconds or a second or so, right? And how smooth you're being, right? Are you ending up, going too deep, locking up all the time, or are you able to be consistent and smooth on your lap times, right? And then after that, it's a debrief and wrap up. If it is a weekend long session, maybe you do have 4 sessions, but it's kind of the premise is the same, right? You're going to go out, you're going to have a classroom and talk about what went well, and then you'll continue to do that throughout the day. Go back out, come back in, talk about it, and then repeat. All right, let's talk about goals for your first time. So number 1 goal is going to be safety first, right? Understand the flags, what they mean, and how to adhere to them, where the flaggers are, right? All this stuff is going to be important throughout, however far you want to take this. But, your goal is going to be, return with yourself and your car in the same condition that you went in with, right? Maybe a little more burnt up oil or something like that. But, safety's first, right? Try to learn the pit lane procedures and rules, right? Don't go speeding through the pit lane. Make sure you're, being respectful to other drivers and things like that. It's not difficult stuff, but it does go a long way for the other people in the paddock and your instructors, right? So if you want to keep going, you need to make sure that you're kind of doing all these things, right? Learning the passing zones, again, it's kind of the same thing as we talked about before. It's kind of a safety focused thing, right? But make sure you're not passing where you shouldn't be passing, whether it's on the straights or full course, passing kind of correctly, I guess you would say. Just make sure you're adhering to the rules, because that's gonna, they're not gonna keep progressing you if you go, if it's a straights only passing rule and you just go dive bombing people. They're not gonna progress you. They're gonna have you, basically where you're at, and you're gonna be doing lead and follows every time you go out on track. Another goal is definitely to respect other drivers and maintain a safe distance, right? So, if you are passing someone, don't immediately swipe back right in front of them where they could potentially lock up and rear end you, right? When you're passing someone, give them plenty of space, right? If you are going around the outside or through, in the inside, leave enough space so that you're not going to understeer and go flying into them. Just be respectful, right? Be patient. If they're a slower driver, take your time. You can sit behind them for a couple seconds and just kind of, feel the track, try to learn something new, watch the flags, stuff like that. That's what you want to be, looking for. And that's really going to just pay dividends the further and further you go. Another one, definitely ask questions and learn, right? I mean, you want to go in with an open mind and ask questions. Everyone there is going to be passionate to, improve their time, improve their car, learn. So, even if you're shy, right, try to ask questions. You're going to get a great response from the instructors, certainly, in terms of how to improve your car. I mean, y'all are there for the same reasons, so try to learn from each other as well, right? And then finally, or second to finally, would be, what you want to do is you want to walk to the limit and build consistency, right? First corner, first session, you don't want to go dive bombing, into the first turn and then just go straight on. You're going to look like a fool and the instructors are not going to be very happy with you, right? So the idea is walking to the limit. The easiest example is going to be braking. If they're 5-10 meter boards, take your time, start at the 5 feels good, go to the 4 feels good, go to the 3, go a little bit after the 3. Oh, that's too much, right? Back it up, and try to build that consistency, right? Can you hit that same lap time, more or less a second, right? Okay, you hit a second. Now let's do half a second. All right, now let's do 2/10, right? So just try to build that consistency, and you're going to be in a good spot. And be safe while you do it. And finally, go out and have fun, right? No one's there to be bored, so go out, have a good time, throw your car around, really feel how fast you're going and everything like that. Enjoy the moment, right? It's going to be stressful. It could be a little scary, right? But, make sure you're having fun. You're engaging with other people, you're learning stuff. You're going to have a great time. All right, some common mistakes that we do see. Ignoring maintenance before and throughout the event. That's going to be number one, right? So you didn't, check your tires. Your tires are all tired and chewed up, right? You go out and you basically can't get any grip or anything like that. That's a tough way to go through the day or through the weekend, right? So make sure that you check your maintenance. Obviously, if you're leaking fluid, they're going to turn you away right away. So just don't do that, right? Make sure that you're checking, at least to the best of your ability, right? And if you're technically inclined, bring some tools so that you can go ahead and fix stuff. If you know how to do that, you have the right parts to do that, so that you go out and you have a great weekend. Through the event, right, you still want to do that. So you get off track, check your pressures, torque your lug nuts, make sure you're still not leaking or anything like that, and you're going to have a great time. Stay hydrated and rested. I know it's going to be stressful, but try to get a good night's sleep, right? That goes a long way to make sure you're focused, you have endurance, so that the last session you're not, a dog, and stay hydrated. Last thing we want, obviously, is someone passing out on track. That would be terrible. So make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're well fed, take care of yourself, right? Next one, mirrors. Probably more of not advanced. It really is beginner, but when you are turning, make sure you're looking in your mirrors. When you're on the straights, make sure you're looking in your mirrors. You know who's where, when, why, right? It's just like being on the highway. Make sure that you know where everyone is so that you're not, someone's not passing you on the inside while you're turning into a corner, right? Not listening to instructors. You need to listen to the instructors, right? Don't think that you're going to go out there, you're going to be Max Verstappen, you're going to be, the fastest person out on track, right? Realistically, you're not. And if you need to learn that, that's the hard truth of it, but you're not going to be the fastest guy out there. These guys have a lot more experience than you. So listen to them, really try to take what they have to say to heart, and try to improve your driving. And it'll go a long way. Finally, it shouldn't, if you're following all these rules, it shouldn't occur, but, overdriving the car does happen, right? Sometimes, it's not a big deal, right? You go a little too deep, maybe you lock a tire or something like that. Not the end of the world, right? They may have you, pull you in and, check to make sure that you're not, shaking in your boots, but, overdriving the car does happen. It happens to all of us. It's not a big deal, but, take your time, walk up to the pace, and you'll be fine. And then I just wanted to put this quote in here, right? A slow lap is never wasted. Again, it's just kind of reiterating that point that you want to take it slow and build your pace up, right? If you are more experienced, but they got you in lead and follow, take the time to find something out about the track if you've already been there or something like that you didn't see the first time when you're going fast, or just try to learn, right? A slow lap, you can really learn something that you didn't see before. Where is the camber? It may be hard to tell when you're actually going full bore, kind of the little things about the track, because you're obviously focused on what you're going to do next. So when you are in those lead and follows, try to really try different lines and things like that. But take it slow, and it'll pay dividends, either the next time, the next session, the next time you go to the track, everything like that. So, taking it slow never hurts. Okay, a couple other considerations. Timing devices can be helpful. Maybe more of an advanced or, intermediate type step. But it can be really helpful to have a timing device. You can use your phones. There are apps for that. So, a timing device can be really helpful to try to find where you're being inconsistent, right? When you're a beginner, inconsistency is kind of the key, right? If you're, braking in different places on, different laps, you might be able to find that. Spare parts, you could bring spare parts, right? If you definitely, right, like if you're going to bring oil or coolant or something like that, spare fluids is really helpful so they're not stuck, and can't go out on a session because you're like, oh, I don't have any oil. But, maybe parts as well, right? If, something like an exhaust hanger or something like that, maybe your exhaust is flapping around, bring a couple hangers or things like that, right? Little things, bringing a couple spare parts, if you already have them in the garage, throw them in the car, bring them, and that way you can at least fix something up. Next is contingencies. We'll go into this in some other videos, but when you are getting into this sport, right, contingency programs are out there for a lot of sanctioning bodies. This can really help defer the cost of motorsport. So these are essentially, if you do have a car that you're taking out on track regularly, they'll give you discounts and things like that, whether it be tires or spare parts and things like that. Take advantage of those. That's the thing that, most people don't do. And follow the rules for how you actually go about getting those. Another one that we definitely want to bring up is how you're getting there and back. For your first time, you could probably, you're really good to, drive the car there and back if you got a reliable kind of newer vehicle, but consider it, right? If you have another vehicle that you can tow or rent a U-Haul and tow your car behind it or something like that, that can really alleviate some of the stress when you're out on track, right? You're on the straight and you're like, half throttling, 3/4 throttling because you're like, I still need to get home in this thing. You can really, even though it sounds kind of crass, right? You can really, when you have that peace of mind that you have a trailer, you can kind of rag on the car a little bit more than if that's your only means to get home. Obviously, the farther and farther away from home, the more and more kind of important that becomes, right? If it's 20 minutes down the road, whatever, I can just tow it back to my house. If my house is 12 hours away, that's going to be an expensive tow bill, right? So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's more of a personal decision, right? But, at least give it a thought. It's usually pretty inexpensive. And then also, accommodations. It's not too unusual for folks to just camp out in their car, right? Especially if they are towing, camping out in the cars, it's going to be a pretty common thing in the paddock. But, if there are hotels available, I think most people would say that getting a hotel is probably going to be better than sitting in your back seats, right? But, again, it's a personal decision whether you want to do that or not. Obviously, if you're doing it on the cheap, right, curling up in your back seat's probably going to be the way to go. Another thing is that way you're not like driving to and from the track. You're there, you're in the moment, and you're doing that, right? All right, final thoughts. Definitely have fun, right? I mean, you're there to have fun. It can be pretty stressful and anxiety provoking, but have fun, right? You're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna have a great time. Enjoy the moment, right? There will also be additional materials in the description. There's a few different checklists for different what to bring and things like that. Some more additional materials. As well as the full deck in the description. So feel free to check that out. Throw your questions in the comments or, feedback for other new drivers, right? Just go ahead and throw that in the comments. That's definitely going to be helpful for some other people checking out the video. And then we do appreciate it if you did find this helpful to like and subscribe. And then also, if you do have any questions, you can feel free to email them directly to us, or, you can reach out to us on Instagram. Those are the appropriate contacts. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or shoot us an email. But if not, have a great time at your track and let us know how it went. All right. Thanks, y'all.